Hey, what's up, guys? How are you today? I hope all is well. God bless you. Just want to lay down a little testimony of my foundation in knowing God. When I first began to be saved, I was living in full sin, and God called onto me and pulled my spirit into heaven. And as I was standing before Him, as I was coming closer to His throne, I kept looking at His eyes and looking at His eyes. It was like looking at eternity. I couldn't explain. I can't explain uh, the way His eyes are, but you can stare into them forever. And as I was looking into His eyes, I realized I was looking at the Most High God. And at that moment, in the spirit, I buckled and fell, and I said, "Don't judge me," and did not want to look into His eyes anymore, and was terrified, because He is humongous, huge, beyond belief, and I was so terrified. But as I was looking at Him, He shook His head like this to me, and I didn't understand. I was like, "Oh no, I did something wrong." But it wasn't something I did wrong. It was something that I was about to do that was wrong. And immediately as I woke up, because I was in a dream at that time, I woke up and immediately I heard fighting in my house. And immediately I got into a fight. And long story short, it was something I shouldn't have done. I shouldn't have got into that fight. And so God was warning me. He was telling me this was wrong. And at that point, that began my, I would say, my quest into knowing who God was. After seeing Him and all those angels that were in front of Him, it began my quest to know more. And as time went on, this actually solidified my relationship, or wanted me to know more about the God of all creation. I'm almost coming into tears, because I was dating a girl at this time, and at this moment she was pregnant, a couple months pregnant, and she was having complications, and she started to spot, and she lost a child. And so, I was praying when she was spotting, and she didn't, we were both in our different houses, different locations, and I was just praying at my house, and all of a sudden I heard a voice call onto me, and it said my name, and then it said, look up. And so I looked up, and then I started to see like an orb, a soul, an orb, a spirit coming up from the earth and going into heaven. And immediately I knew that was my child. And the orb stopped, and it looked at me, and I looked at the orb, or the baby, or the spirit, and we both looked at each other. And the baby all of a sudden just flew into heaven. Lightning speed, beyond my eyes, in seconds, in heaven. And at that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, I know what just happened. My baby just died. And so, but my baby was alive. My baby died, but was still alive because my baby was in heaven. And at that moment, everything changed for me. And I realized, wow, how powerful is this God of heaven, that he looks after everything. It's deeper than flesh, than your mind, than your soul. He has everything in his hands, in heaven and on earth. And it's so beautiful. So at that moment, my girlfriend comes to my house with her family, and her stepdad comes to me and says, "Hey, I gotta tell you something. Something just happened. I think there's something going on with, my daughter." And he explains the situation. And then I got in the car and I was like, I already know what happened. I was like, and I told him exactly what happened to me. And I said, I know that my baby's in heaven. And they all looked at me because they didn't tell me exactly what happened, because he didn't want to tell me. He wanted me to find out from her. And so, but I said something before she said something. And automatically they all were shocked in the car. And they were like, wow. And at that point, I knew at that moment, that I wanted to have a relationship with God. And that is the truth. And ever since then, I've been seeing great miracles, wonderful things that happen. God has showed me many things that I'm going to come here and share with you guys. So this is just a little truth of my foundation of following the way to the Lord. This was the beginning of my journey. God bless you guys. I just wanted to share that with you guys, just a testimony to showing that God got everything in his hands. Praise God.